Hey guys, it's Chris at the Ultimate Recycler. Today we're going to do a bit of experimenting on cleaning up old tins. Now I'm going to do a video on rust removal products, a comparison video soon, but this one's a little bit different because we have to be careful of the artwork. Now I found these two tins recently in an old shed. I went and did some picking, spent about $150, and I'm going to do a separate video on that. I've already started it. And that will be an appraisal video to show you what I scored and how I clean it up and what profits I make. Now I thought I'd do a separate video on cleaning up these two tins because it's an experiment that I haven't, a process I haven't used before. And what we're going to use is citric acid. Now here's some citric acid that I found in the lining of an old suitcase. No, not true, it is really citric acid. And we're going to dilute that in a bucket of water, which I've got down here, and submerge these tins, and hopefully, from what I've been reading, it should clean the rust up a fair bit without removing the paint. So it's a little bit of a risk, but that tin's very badly rusted. I have given it a gentle wash. I haven't scrubbed too hard, but I've just gone over it very lightly with a soft sort of scourer just to remove any flaky stuff. The tin, it's actually made probably in 1920s. Corny's, it was a breakfast cereal. Beautiful graphics on there. It's a shame it was in the shed and left to rust. But these were marketed with the idea that you could use the tins as canisters when you're finished. And this one's marked flour. I've seen some others marked sugar and rice, I think. So the back's pretty rough. The tin itself is fairly poor condition. It's cracked. It's out of shape. It doesn't have a lid. I think it has got a few small holes in the bottom, so it's quite poor condition, but it's worth trying to save because of the artwork, and we'll see if the citric acid will clean it up without damaging it. The other little tin here is a nice one in that it's 1937 coronation of King George VI, and not only that, but it's a perpetual calendar, and all that mechanism actually works quite well. It's got some surface rust. It's lost a lid. It would have had a hinged lid on it. The bottom's okay. It's not rusted out. But because of that perpetual calendar mechanism that does still work, it's not overly rusty, that part, we'll see if we can bring that up a bit better in the citric acid without doing any damage. So, alright, I'm going to make up a solution in here. I did some reading and looked at a few YouTube videos, and some of the guys in the States were cleaning up beer cans, and they were using, one guy recommended 8 ounces per gallon, but another guy was talking of only 2 ounces per gallon. So I've equated that to roughly 50 grams per 4 litres. I'm erring on the side of weakness because the stronger the acid is, the more likely we've got of damaging the paintwork. So I've got some warm water here, as I said. There's 16 litres in there. So at 50 grams per 4 litres, that's going to be 200 grams. So we'll weigh that out now and we'll mix it, stir it in and mix it up. So I've weighed out my pretend drugs and we shall put them into the bucket. Now the warm water, of course, will help the citric acid to dissolve much quicker. It's not going to stay warm, of course. We're going to leave these soak for about 24 hours and just have a look and see how they're going. So we'll stir all this in, make sure it's dissolved, and then we'll put the cans in, and hopefully there's enough water in there to cover them both. And I'm using a jar full of water just to not only weigh the large can down, but also to displace some of this water up a little bit higher, so it means I don't have to make up quite as much solution. So there we go. I've put that jar full of plain water in the bottom to hold that tin down, sat the other one on top. I did add another couple of litres just to make sure it covered the top. It doesn't quite cover the top of the little one, but that won't matter, I don't think. I might add just a whisker more because then it'll hopefully clean the rust up a little bit around the rim. We've diluted the solution quite a bit, but I will just top it up with a little bit more powder just to keep it at that roughly 50 grams per 4 litres. And then when we've got a known concentration to see how well it works. But it is a fairly weak solution judging on what some of the other guys were doing. So we'll leave it for 24 hours and just have a bit of a look, because we can see the artwork on the side. and just see if the water's discoloured or if anything's actually happening. So alright, I'll top it up a little bit and add a little bit more citric acid just around the side, give it a stir. I'll put the lid on and we'll check it in 24 hours. Okay, Houston, we have a problem. Shortly after I signed off last night, about an hour before I went home, I checked the solution, and this can looked as if it was fading. The paint was reacting not in a good way, and you can see there's been a bit of paint loss there. I picked it out straight away and washed it off, but clearly this paint finish didn't go well with, you can see quite a lot of paint loss there, didn't go well with the citric acid, unfortunately. I'm a bit disappointed in this, but as I picked it out, my fingers just on the blue had blue on them, so the paint was certainly breaking down very quickly. So I took it out. It was only in for just under an hour, I suppose. I rinsed the tin off. I put it in a bit of water I put it in the sink with a bit of bicarb soda or baking soda to neutralise any acid that was left, and rinsed it off. And it seems stable now. The paint doesn't seem soft at all, but it has suffered a bit. So clearly the lesson there is not all tins are going to respond nicely to citric acid. It hasn't damaged the actual tin itself or the operation of the perpetual calendar, but it certainly reduced the quality of the paintwork. So yeah, look, it was always an experiment. And this side I did put a little bit of beeswax on, and it restores a little bit of the colour to it. So I'll gently wipe the rest of it over with some beeswax, and we'll just have to sell that one as it is. It's probably dropped a little bit of value, unfortunately, but as I was saying, that's what experiments are for. Now let's have a look at the other one. When I checked the other one, it looked okay, so I thought I've left it overnight, and look at that. This is the first look I've had. It's been around about 24 hours, and the water's certainly yellowed up. I'm presuming it's from the rust. The artwork on this one doesn't appear to be damaged. In fact, that's looking good. Alright, so we might have one success and one failure maybe. So what I'll do now is I'll take this out and I'll give it a good rinse off with the hose, and I'll tip the bucket out and refill it with fresh water, put a little bit of bicarb soda in there, submerge the canister again just to neutralise any acid, and then tomorrow morning we'll give it a bit of a clean up and a bit of beeswax and see how it looks. I did take some before photos of both of these, so we'll finish this video up with some comparison photos and just see how well it worked. Hopefully it worked well on this one to make up for the disappointing result on this one. I now have some fresh water in the bucket, although it doesn't look fresh, but the tin still has a little bit of rusty stuff coming off on the inside. The outside I gave just a very light, I'll say a scrub, but it was really just a gentle rub with a sponge. I wasn't going to use anything more coarse than that because it will damage the paint. And there's areas that it did take the paint back to the metal, but that's because that stuff was rust anyway. It wasn't actually paint. It looks like the actual artwork's going to be pretty good. But you've got to keep in mind that I think a lot of the videos that I did see with beer cans that the guys were doing, really what they had was a beer can that wasn't too bad, and it was rust stained from being next to metal, and a little patch of rust can spread over the paint, so the paint's still there. In this case, I think the rusty patches were actually rust on the metal, and the paint had long gone anyway, so I think it's actually going to be pretty good. So fresh water in that. I tipped the old water out on an area of gravel where I didn't want weeds to grow. It doesn't really matter. Citric acid is basically just lemon juice, and it'll break down fine. There's going to be no environmental issues with that. And Google tells me that this stuff, baking soda, or we call it bicarb in Australia, will neutralise any other acid. So I'll sprinkle a little bit in there. I'll stir that around for a little bit, and then I'll take the can out, give it a final rinse, and leave it dry properly. And as I said, we'll run a bit of beeswax over it in the morning, and I can do some comparison photos to show you how, hopefully, how good it looks. And here's our final results ready for the shop. We have success and failure in one picture. The Cornier's tin, I'm actually very happy with that. The beeswax just brought a little bit of colour out. The writing's much more readable. It's even changed the colour of it to a little bit of a greenish colour, and when I did a search it appears they were a light green tin. The back's much more readable, it's great. So see a little bit of paint loss there, but as I explained earlier, I think that's actually just the paint had already gone, it was just rust that it's taken off. So that has certainly value added enormously. I'm very happy with that tin, even though it's cracked, it doesn't have a lid, it's got a few little holes in it. It's a very saleable piece. Beautiful graphics there of the early farm scene with a horse team towing an early harvester. I think this tin dates around 1920s. I did see it when I googled, I saw a few people saying 1915, but I don't think that harvest is quite that early. The good thing is there's some writing on the bottom that you couldn't read before, and it actually says Melbourne, so it's an Australian made tin, even though I think Cornies might be an international company. Perhaps it started in Australia, I'm not sure, I haven't done that research. But I'm very happy with that tin, whereas I'm very disappointed with this one. You can see we lost quite a lot of paint, a lot of the artwork. The beeswax will protect it from any further rust, and it brought the colour out a little bit, but yeah, there's no hiding the fact that we've lost value on that one. So I guess the conclusions are that yes, this process works brilliantly sometimes and not on others. It's going to depend on the type of paint. And what I would recommend is perhaps make up a bit of a solution, maybe even a little bit stronger than what we used, and perhaps rest a little drop on the back for an hour and just see what happens. Give you a bit of a guide as to what it's going to do to the paint, because I certainly would have got better value on this can if I had left it untouched. So I would suggest we probably lost about, I don't know, $15. I would have priced this as it was at say $25. Now I think we'll probably just put $10 on it. So negative there. However, this one, as it was, I would have probably just put 20 or 30 on it. Now I think we can price it up towards 100. It's a beautiful display piece. So that's really good value adding. I'm going to put 95 on it in the shop and see how it goes. It may sit there for a while, but up on a tall shelf in the kitchen room, it's going to look great. So there we go. Thanks for watching. I'll leave you with some before and after pictures. And if you've had experience using citric acid to clean up some cans, let us know below. Let us know what you found. But as far as I'm concerned, I think I'd definitely try it again. But I would be careful perhaps to test a small patch on the back first, especially on a valuable can. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of this. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.